Welcome to 100 Authors in 100 Days. I'm your host, Adriana, and today it's all about conversations for transformation, where we find the story behind the story, a place where you get the opportunity to explore why the authors become the authors and what we can learn from them as a collective. We explore writers and artists and luminaries, all writing about life, the world, and our future in it. So today I have the privilege of interviewing Edie O'Reilly, a wonderful, phenomenal author, writer, speaker. And Edie is a life coach. Her mission and commitment is to empower individuals in understanding their own emotional guidance system. Which I have to tell you something about that, Edie, because I did another interview and we were talking about the same thing. So her emotional guidance system that work and live happy, content, and successful lives. After her third son, Conor, was born with multiple health issues, she realized that her life was happening for her and nothing went wrong. Now she lives an inspired life, no matter what is happening. Choosing to see how it is happening for you allows you to see the opportunity in all situations. So with you, Edie O'Reilly, welcome.
Thank you, Adriana.
I made reference when I was reading your bio because this morning I had a quick conversation with Mervis, who you know, Mervis Lopez, and we were talking about the emotional guidance system, and we had this whole thing about it. So it's kind of interesting. I just realized that we're going to be talking about that with you as well. So it's kind of neat. And so to see, because I haven't seen you, for those of the listeners and people watching us on YouTube, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now in the United States and actually all over the world. So everything is indoor, and we are, making the best that we can out of what's happening. And for me, I get to interview and hang out with a bunch of authors and talk about their stories in their book. So Edie, can you tell us a little bit about your journey in writing your book and what made you decide to finally publish, and what's up for you in the future for the writings?
So I was born with a inquisitive mind. I was always wanting to figure out what this life is about from a very early age. So I had a life that led me around the world. I studied with a lot of people, and I trained in meditation, yoga, pranic healing. I have had a lot of self-contemplation in my life. Now, when my son Conor was born, he's my third son, he was born with multiple health issues. And for the first 5 months that he was in the neonatal intensive care unit, I forgot about my training, and I reacted, as I think any human would, to the situation I was in. And I found myself completely at just awful, like I was living a nightmare. And 5 months into it, I realized that I had tools that I wasn't using. And so I asked myself, knowing what you know, what's going on here? And that's when I realized that I wasn't alone, because a voice popped into my head and it asked me, what if this is happening for you? And what if there are blessings that you're not seeing? And so my first realization is that I wasn't alone. I was being guided. And when I considered those questions and I realized that I hadn't been using the tools that I had accumulated through my years, once it shifted, it just totally changed everything. My son got better. It took him 3 more months to get out of the hospital. He improved, and it improved my life. Mm-hmm. Now, needless to say, I stepped back into the old human mode. Once Conor came home, I again was reacting to situations and just kind of living life on autopilot. And it wasn't until 4 years after the whole journey began that I actually sat and contemplated on what really happened in the hospital and what is this really about. And that's where this book came from. I realized that I had felt the truth in my body. And I thought, geez, if I could feel that, could others feel that too? Mm-hmm. And when I sat down and I thought about the steps that I had gone through, I used those steps again and again and again to practice to see if, is there something here? And sure enough, there is. And I realized that we can feel truth. It resonates in our bodies, and it may resonate slightly different depending on the person, but pretty much when we hear truth, we feel it. Yeah. And you can tune your body to feel it more often, and you can trust in it. And the more you trust and the more you feel, the more you can depend on it. So you're not hopelessly going through life. You know, I remember one of my times I spent was living in an ashram. It's a yoga community. And I remember asking the head monk, and we called them swamis, how do I know when to make a decision? How do I know when it's the right choice? And her only response to me was, you'll just know. And that never settled with me. I'm like, no, there's got to be a way that I know. And so my book, and what I realized was that it is individual. Our journeys are all individual, and we all have our truth, and that truth resonates for us. And when you learn how to feel it, then you're guided always, and you're never lost. You don't feel like you're just out there reacting to life anymore. Life actually brings a whole different dimension to it. Mm-hmm. And it takes away the fear.
Yeah. I mean, you have such a powerful story, because I remember the first time that I met you at a speakers club, and you shared the story with a group. I was sitting in the front. I don't know if you remember this, but I could feel your entire journey. And I mean, I was just like, oh! I mean, I was so impacted. I was so impacted, and I was like, you know, in my mind thinking, you need to share this with the world. You need to let people know, because it's like you're so in tune with the truth, you know. And of course, like you just said, it's perhaps maybe your truth, and you're tapping into your own internal compass, right? But for me, when you were sharing it, I really felt like it was a global message. And of course, I just had to be your friend, and I was like, hey, let's do coffee, right? And I was really fortunate that I did get to see, you know, your journey with your book. I don't know if I wrote this. It's called When the Body Speaks, and it's almost like your tips and your really easy understanding, and your basic knowledge of how your body is talking to you all the time, which I found really, really good for me when I read it. And I was like, okay, it's an easy read, but it's also really deep. And I love the fact that truth is always really simple. So
yes, and that is exactly my point. We overcomplicate everything, and we try to think too much into stuff. And yeah, it's a simple read, but if you get what I say in that book, you've actually got a real huge foundation in life in guiding yourself, because you have your own journey, you have your own wisdom, and you feel it. And a lot of people feel the negative, but they don't really feel that positive as strongly. So it's training your body to feel the positive just as much as you can feel that negative.
Yes. And you know, are you going to write an additional
yes.
book, or you have? And the reason why I ask is because, you know, as I read through it, and then I was like, oh, this is good, you know. And it's like I wanted more. I'm like, okay, because not only is this easy to really implement, you also have like areas for notes, and then I love the fact that you're asking questions at the end. Like at the end of the chapters, you're asking the reader to engage with what you just shared, which is perfect. But at the end, I was like, I wanted more, because I know you, and I know that your background is so deep. I mean, you didn't just read a bunch of books like most of us do. Like, I'm a reader, right? I read every single book out there of every mystic, and you know, but I haven't lived that life. And one thing that I really love about you is that you have lived that life. You lived in an ashram, right? It's like you were there. You lived in India, right? And you did the journey. You lived it, and that's one of the things that is most appealing to me about you, is that you didn't just read the books. You know what I mean? So definitely appreciate that about you. So what's your next book going to be about?
Well, it's going to be about enlightenment, and it's it's kind of like out there, but it's I haven't got the title exactly down, but it's going to be like enlightenment, something about misconception versus reality, because as I lived through a lot of life experience, like I've read a lot too, and I think that real knowledge comes from not only hearing, but also being part of what you've learned. And fortunately, that's what my son has given me. When he came into my life, he actually allowed me to apply all these life lessons that I had stuck in me. I actually had to apply them to get out of my situation. So the question of the title, don't know exactly, but it's going to be, you know, when I lived in ashrams and their idea of enlightenment and how society thinks of enlightenment. Again, I think we've complicated everything. And so anyway, that's the next book that I'm currently writing, is about enlightenment.
I love it. I love it. So earlier you mentioned that when you were in the hospital with your son Conor, that you weren't implementing the things that you had learned for so many years.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the listeners will resonate with that, because especially for those of us who are public speakers and in coaching and professional development and sometimes more times than not, I find myself not implementing what I teach. Not using what I teach, right? Which is hilarious. It's hilarious because I'm like, wait, you know, I'm a heart math coach, so my whole curriculum and what I teach has to do with this coherence between the heart and the brain, and how we need to breathe properly, and there's a way to breathe, and all of these things, right? And I find myself going through the day not implementing any of it. So yeah, when you were sharing that, I was like, that is so true. And I suppose where I'm trying to get at is that even in the middle of all of this stuff that you were experiencing and all of these emotions that were not, you know, good emotions, or maybe confusion or whatever you were feeling at the moment, you still were able to almost get out of that and then say, hey, wait, you know, what about everything you learned, you know? Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, because I've always, so my background, I have in Ayurvedic medicine, which we talked to briefly before we went on here. And that is living a holistic life, using food as your medicine, body treatments. And I believed, as I was seeing clients with the Ayurvedic medicine, if I didn't walk the walk, you're not going to listen to me. So I really believe in walking the walk if you're teaching it to others. And I did that. Like, I felt like I was all about health. I knew about health. And then when my son Conor was born, which is why it hit me so hard too, he was unhealthy. I'm like, how did I do that? I'm supposed to be all about health. How did I do that? And so, because I was reacting to the situation and looking at the surface, I didn't go, you know, under the hood with that, what was going on. So I truly believe that when you walk the walk, it resonates more with people than if it's just about the talk. But it's normal and human to get off track and react to stuff. It's just what we do. And it takes a strong mind to not do that. And, you know, it's an ongoing thing. It just happens.
Yeah, I believe that it is an ongoing thing. And what I got out of understanding that and becoming aware of that was that I need to be kinder to myself and not be, oh, you're no, here you teach it. Like, in my inner dialogue is like, you're trying to teach this stuff and you're not even implementing it, and da-da-da. And then I'm thinking, my nice voice says, okay, calm down.
That's serving nobody. Yeah.
Just breathe, you know, it's okay, you know. No, the only person judging me is myself.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. It's doing no good.
Yeah, I'm laughing because it's so, I know that it doesn't just happen to me. And I think that when you shared that, I'm like, oh, she does that too.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is we are all on our own journeys, right? And so to judge, especially ourselves, the best thing to do is to be kind to yourself, have the best relationship with yourself, love yourself. And then the journey kind of looks totally different because it's not happening to you. It is literally happening for you. So the fact that you're not following the advice that you give others is actually showing you something about yourself. So it's not there to be judged. It's there to be embraced and say, you know what? I must judge others, or I must do, because what we do to ourselves, we do to others. And it's about the reflection and just coming back together and regrouping and saying, you know what, I don't need to do that anymore. This isn't a competition. This is me living my life as I'm supposed to live it, not somebody else.
Yes. And one other thing that you highlight in the book is it's the way that you have, it's like a philosophy. It's like you have this philosophy of life that I believe can shift a lot of people, because it's not like anything new under the sun, but you are explaining things in a different way. You're like writing things in a different, like, you know, I did some tabs here. I don't know if we'll get to them, but there was a couple of things in here that really resonated with me. Okay, so this idea that we entirely create everything that happens to us. So I think that for people who are not who are new to this kind of content or this kind of understanding, they're gonna be like, what do you mean I create everything? You mean I created this environment for myself? I created, you know, this relationship for myself. I created, being in a wheelchair, or I created all these things. And the reality is, like, to a certain extent, that's true, right? And this is what I'm understanding, right? It's like we've chosen to, I believe in a reincarnation, so I believe that we've chosen to reincarnate in this life to experience these experiences.
Yeah, we are all living life through our own perception. My perception is not my husband's perception. My perception is mine and mine alone. And when you go through life, you're living life with your own perception, period. There's nobody else involved in your life. I know that's kind of a weird thing. So as you're going through life and it's happening, and the reason why I say it's happening for you is because it's reflecting what's going on with you. So say I'm in a grumpy mood. I woke up in a really bad mood and I don't do anything to shift myself. Then more likely things are going to keep happening to you throughout that day that's going to keep you in that bad mood. Mm-hmm. And just the other way, if you wake up in a really good space and you keep yourself there, you're going to have more things coming to you that's going to keep you in that good space. Now, you can say, when you look at something like my son, so things happen, like I birthed a baby with all these health issues. And yes, that also happened for me. And at the time, I didn't see it, because always, whenever you're going through something, you don't always see all the benefits in it. But when you step back and you look at whatever you've gone through, there are such big golden nuggets in it. My son happened for me because he came to answer what I've been asking for all of my life. And that is, why am I here and what am I doing? And through him, I've had all these realizations that I feel the truth, and I feel like I have to share and help others who want to live happy lives, because we can live, and I know happy is kind of this term that's it's different for everybody. Mm-hmm. But when we realize that we are literally creating this life that we're walking down alone, there's nobody else asserting into our reality. It is you and you alone. You take ownership of it, and life is just so different. It's so much richer. Everything that happens that's kind of a hardship in a way actually enriches life. Mm-hmm. And it brings a dimension to it, and then you're grateful for those hardships, because how boring would it be if I didn't have it? And then what you get from it too. So yeah, it's a process, and I know I've had a lifetime of contemplation and meditation and just self-discovery, and I don't expect everybody to totally get that, but there is a whole nother level that you can get that just brings you to a whole nother level of joy and happiness in this world.
Yeah, and I bring that bit up because that was the one where I was like, wow, if I hadn't done the work and if I hadn't really worked on myself in terms of understanding that philosophy and that idea that we're creating as we're living, right? And that it's just us and we're experiencing life, that would have completely thrown me off. Like, we're creating everything, and so I think that for a lot of people who, where this is new, they're going to be like, what do you mean? I'm responsible for everything. What about this? What about that? So that was something that I personally struggled with for a really long time, because there was so many things that had happened for me, but at the time I thought they were happening to me.
Right.
And,
yes.
And I was like, no, that's impossible. There's no way I created that for myself. Why would I be so awful to myself, right? And now with this new understanding, which is what you teach, this new way of looking at how the pieces really work, the beautiful pieces that I believe God has placed for us, and then you say, oh, okay, that's a blessing. Now that's a blessing, where 15 years ago I would have said that's a curse, that's a total curse. Now I'm like, no, that was a total blessing, And
yeah.
And then that's why I really appreciate your book, because you go into not just sharing your story and your experiences, but you have the questions at the end, and then you are asking the reader, engage, what does this mean for you? What does that mean for you? Because I agree with what you said earlier, which is everybody's going to have a different take.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's okay.
Yeah. So, well, with all of that being said, Edie, I appreciate you being here with me today on this Saturday and talking about this amazing book that I love. I love the title. And
do you want to give a little background? So Adriana actually helped me find that title. I didn't know what to call it, and I kind of gave her a synopsis of where I was going with it. And I still really like the title because it is about our bodies, and because they literally are our guidance system. We feel our truth. And I still love the title. So thank you for it.
I love it too. And I'm excited. This is a show about 100 days, 100 authors in 100 days, and it's about how authors become authors. And I mean, for anybody watching, you've got to get on Edie's, anything that she puts out there, get her book, read her story, learn more about her, because once you engage with her powerful story, I think it'll help a lot of people shift, even if it shifts you just a little bit. Maybe like for me, it was like, whoa, this is amazing. And then it's the way, Edie, that you also share the story. It's really powerful. So I encourage anybody to, you're welcome. I encourage anybody out there listening to look at the link below, check out her book. It's on Amazon. Do you have the book anywhere else?
It's on Barnes & Noble's online too.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, check it out. And she does do life coaching, and she does one-on-ones right now. When we were talking earlier, she's doing one-on-one coaching on Zoom. And I would love for anybody listening to get to know her and get to know her philosophy and get to know her story. So is there anything you want to leave the listeners with, Edie?
If they want to find out more about me, they can go to my website. It's edieoreilly.com. And I think you've done a great job. Thank you so much for having me and sharing my book with everybody. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so on your next book, whatever title that is, I would love to have you on again, and I hope to hear from you soon. And until this quarantine is over with, we probably won't see each other until
I know.
Yeah, so let's do more Zoom talks.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Adriana.
You got to come on my other show, the Mystic Sages and Monks one.
Okay.
So all right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, bye.